Staying motivated as an artist and as a digital creator can be so challenging as there are so many different things competing for our attention in our day-to-day lives. So how do you stay motivated, especially when it's like a personal project that you're not being paid for? I believe one of the best ways to do that is actually to start a YouTube channel for yourself. Let me explain why. It's no surprise that if you've been assigned a project in school or someone hires you to do a job, that it's much easier to stay motivated. I mean, after all, you're either being paid for it or your grades are depending on it. In my last video, we discussed how an obsession with consumerism and purchasing new gear may develop into a creative block of types. If you've been finding yourself kind of feeling that, maybe you've been shopping a lot and you can't seem to get your head in the game, I would suggest go ahead and watch that video. Check it out after this one, see if it helps. And I would say if that's not the case, if you are ready to jump into a project and you're just looking for ways to stay motivated when you've got so many other distractions, then this is the video for you. I've personally found that, especially after a project's been going on for a while, I start to taper in my motivation to continue. Maybe it's after I finish my first draft, it's just the thought of revising it and working through it gets kind of daunting. Maybe I start to get distracted by other projects and other ideas I've come up with. But in any case, it just seems like after a while, I start to taper off in my own personal motivation on these projects. And usually that means my artistic pieces really never get completed. But when I was in school, I don't think there was a single time that I didn't actually turn in an assignment on time, no matter how challenging it was to complete it. I've seen a tendency among artists to treat assigned projects differently than like self-assigned projects. On the one hand, you can work tirelessly and really just kill ourselves to get this assignment done on time and make sure that our client is very pleased with it. Whereas on the other hand, when it's self-assigned, we treat it more like a passion project where maybe it's not so important to do it in a timely way. We can dabble in it here and mess with it over here, but never really complete the work and give ourselves a lot of excuses and a lot of licenses to not put the same effort into that project. Maybe it's a form of perfectionism. For you, maybe this passion project is a representation of you as an artist, so you want to make sure it's as perfect as possible. To put it plainly, you're lacking in some sort of motivation. I mean, imagine how incredible it would be to be able to approach your self-assigned work, those passion projects, with the same determination and vigor that you do when a client is paying you. I mean, there's no telling what you can accomplish with that kind of internal drive. It's how artists make it as artists. They have that internal motivation to turn their passion project into their livelihood. Now, whatever you feel about YouTube or social media in general, I want you to just consider starting a YouTube channel just for your art. I'm not talking about trying to get monetized or trying to become a professional YouTuber. I'm talking about a really low-key, kind of simple channel that's just a way to showcase what you're working on and force yourself to stay slightly under the pressure of actually releasing something on time. In the comments down below, I want you to let me know if you've been feeling this lack of motivation in your artistic journey. If when work gets challenging or life gets challenging or you take on other assignments, if your passion projects kind of get pushed to the back burner because you just don't really have time for it. And then you lose motivation to even continue and pick it up again. We can get through this together. We can work through it. We got this. Okay, so talking about YouTube, here are my 4 pros that I've personally experienced to starting a YouTube channel just simply for art. Okay, so I've written these down, so if it looks like I'm reading, it's because I am. It forced me to upload regularly, and I gave myself a deadline to do it. This is such an important part of your artistic journey, especially if you're just starting out, is to give yourselves a deadline. Having to upload on a regular schedule just because the algorithm says to really helps you have this motivation, this internal motivation, no matter how small, to continue to upload on a schedule. Number 2, I received constant feedback from other creative people watching me work. Again, this is so important, is to get feedback from people who are either further along from you or who are your peers that are pursuing the same type of art. When I was doing landscape photography very early on, I was taking pictures, posting them on my socials, and I was putting up YouTube videos of showing my process, and I was always getting really constructive feedback from the audience that started watching me. Instead of just being like, blah, 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 you suck, go back to school. Everyone was so helpful and so encouraging that I really felt great about continuing. And that brings us to pro number 3. Through it, I was able to join a community of artists who I could respect and learn from. Think about it this way. All the great artists knew about each other. A lot of them joined the same kind of communities, whether they were writers, painters, photographers, it didn't matter. By working with others who both challenged you and enriched you with their own art, not only did it grow your creativity, but it also helped you get that constant feedback. You joined a community. I don't know how else to put it, but it's really helpful to have other people who are at the same level or ahead of you scrutinize your work, help you grow, and encourage you to keep on going. And pro number 4, because I was seeing what others in that group were working on, because I was seeing what other people were doing, I had incentive to keep on going. The incentive is so important. That's where that motivation comes in. Because they had this expectation that, oh, Jude is going to post a new video, it kind of forced me into putting stuff out there, even if they weren't necessarily perfect, but just to get that feedback and stay consistent. So those are my 4 pros. Now, as always, there are cons to doing anything. So here are 4 cons. Again, I've written them down. Number 1, it's easy when your channel grows to get sucked into the algorithm and lose sight of why you started the channel to begin with. I see this a lot of times. You start a channel just for fun, just as a hobby, just because you enjoy the creativity and maybe you do want to focus on those 4 pros that I talked about. But then you start getting some traction, you start getting interested in the algorithm itself, you think, oh, maybe I could become a YouTuber, and then you totally get lost in that and distracted from that, and instead of motivating you to continue your art, you start to get motivated to focus on YouTube itself. This is not going to help you with your artistic journey unless you want to be a YouTuber, I guess. There are people who do. So don't fall into that trap. Continue your art, post passionately with the motivation that YouTube gives you, and don't lose sight of that. Con number 2, you can easily get distracted by totally other topics like gear reviews. Remember in my last video, we talked about how gear, the focus, the obsession, the passion for buying new gear for your art may cause creative block. Again, this is how we fall into it. If you start going down the rabbit trail of gear on YouTube, you lose sight of why you're creating, why you started the channel, and then you start thinking, oh, maybe I need this, maybe you need to buy this, this creator's using this creator's using that. It starts to bring you down this rabbit trail of gear, then you lose sight of your why, you lose sight of your purpose, and you start focusing on spending money. Con number 3, you might find yourself starting to create what you think will be popular in order to grow your channel instead of in your art. Now, this is so easy to do, especially if you fall into that first con or that first trap, is you start to think, oh, well, this video got this many views, maybe I need to keep making that type of art, and it becomes a popularity game. Or you see that YouTuber make that type of art in your genre, in your medium. You're like, well, maybe I can copy them and do something like that and get popular. Again, this is not why you started your channel. You didn't start it to become a YouTuber. You started it to motivate you into continuing your art, not someone else's. So ignore the fact that these people are getting popular for this niche art or this trendy art. Focus on what you love creating and what you're passionate about so you don't lose sight of why you started working on your art to begin with. And con number 4, and this is a big one, it can be very discouraging when you experience the trolls on the internet that are out there just to bring you down. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. There are mean people out there who literally just want to bring you down because you're putting yourself out there. We see it across all social medias, across the entire internet. There are people out there who get some kind of satisfaction out of making other people feel dumb, stupid, pointless, whatever the case may be. These people have no constructive criticism to them. They are only there to belittle you, and most of the time it's because they are incapable of doing what you are capable of doing, and so they want to drag you down to their level where you feel pointless. I've experienced this personally, and I'm passionate about this because it is so damaging, not to your ego or your pride, but it's so damaging to your motivation, because then you post something, you get this negative criticism that's just there to make you feel stupid, and you just feel empty inside and like, oh, should I even bother? Ignore those people. That is not real life. That type of person is only there to drag you down. They have no interest but their own. I first got into YouTube about 8 years ago, and I quickly fell in love with the idea that you can post something that people actually watch. Up until that point, I was always making little videos and little films and short little stories with my family, but it would just sit on a hard drive or get shown to extended family or something like that. And this finally gave me something that oh, hey, I could post a video and people are actually gonna watch it. I'm gonna sound really old here for a second, but back in those days, YouTube was a totally different game. I mean, you're talking nowadays we have 2.6 billion active users as of April 2023. So far fewer people back then, and it was much easier to stand out. Whereas now it can feel kind of daunting to actually find the community that you want to join. So if you want to take up the challenge of starting a YouTube channel, I'm going to give you 3 pieces of advice here that I've written down. Once again, these will help you avoid the cons and focus in on the pros, okay? Number 1 is to post consistently about the same topic. Now, I'm not talking about if you are a painter and you love to paint flowers, you can't start painting like buildings or animals. I'm saying that if you're a painter, just paint. Make a channel about painting. Don't start making a channel that does painting and woodworking and skydiving or whatever. Just focus in on that one art form and the algorithm will start to push it in front of other people who are also interested in painting. Number 2, literally everything on YouTube that anyone says to you is a subjective opinion, okay? If it doesn't align with your approach, ignore it. Don't worry about it. And number 3, don't overthink it. Your video does not have to be perfect in order to post it. If your videos are being watched, it's because people find value in what you're producing. So just continue that journey. Focus on the pros of starting a YouTube channel, overcome the cons, and stay motivated to continue creating your art. As much as I'd like to say that the easiest way to stay motivated is just to pretend that you've got a deadline, like that someone has assigned you the project and you've got a deadline to keep, our brains are too smart for that. We'll be able to see around that. We'll give ourselves some excuses. We really do need some kind of external motivation to continue. And this, I think, is the best way to do it, is to start a YouTube channel and just start posting some updates or some behind the scenes of what you're creating. So what are your thoughts? Would you start a YouTube channel, or have you started a YouTube channel just to update people on the art that you are creating, on the things that you're working on, so that you stay motivated and so that the people in the community can help you grow as an artist? I mean, in the old days, we might have joined a guild or we might have tried to work with a mentor. Nowadays, thanks to the power of internet, we can literally just post stuff and those people come and find us thanks to the algorithms that want to build communities. I mean, stop thinking about YouTube as the bad guy here. Start thinking about it as this is a great asset to join a community, find a community, and the algorithm does all that work for you. All you have to do is start posting things about the topic you're passionate about. It's pretty cool, right? So last time we talked about how obsessing over new gear often results in a form of creative block. If you want to see that video, again, I'll link it in this video. Next week, we're going to start thinking about the why artists so often experience creative burnout. And if that's something you're interested in, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, click the bell icon so you get notified when that comes out. That's all I have for you today, so I'll see you later. Thanks again.